great
you,
to have
and
you.
thanks for your warm welcome, and good night, Rose. It's a long time
Thanks,
since
sir.
we have interacted in person. Um, I, it's remarkable how, without having discussed it with Rose, Rose's presentation segues perfectly. And a little earlier, yours too, Ferdy, when you were dealing with the facts about the so-called lost decade, perfectly with my topic, which is spotting spotting the light on wrong information in politics. Spotting the light on wrong information in politics. Uh, and because I I I like to, because of my training in social sciences and history, I try not to, or I try not to look at just an isolated incident, but try to give it context, history, try to make sense of it as to what it means fundamental to the society. Right, thank you. So I have been watching some trends in Barbados. And first of all, let me deal with what Rose said. I would have thought that Miss Liz Thompson, who I know used to fancy herself with the word Smith, would have known the difference between legacy and legend. I think you make a very clear distinction. First of all, you do not create your own your legacy is given to you by the future
Yes.
historians and people they review. You can contribute to your being a legend, but you cannot contribute to your legacy. That is it's like somebody trying to claim a practicing politician say, I am a statesman. No. Society accords that title and distinction to you at the right time and the right circumstance. But I would have thought that when I heard Ms. Thompson pontificating, exaggerating about the Prime Minister Ms. Morley, he said, this cannot be the Miss Morley I knew in cabinet for 9 years. Because, and I said, obviously, Ms. Thompson is believing her own propaganda. Because I would say, based on my knowledge of Ms. Morley for 9 years around cabinet table and many years thereafter, and her performance right now, she would talk more a myth than a legend. Ms. Morley is more a myth than a legend. Ms. Morley is a creature of a carefully constructed over the years near personality cult, and she's arrived at the right time with the technology and celebrity status where you can use. She's the first prime minister to have a full-time person who goes in and wherever they go, especially overseas, with cameras, etc. Charles Young. That post that we had, director of communication, was created and rearranged for him just so he can follow her. So she's a celebrity prime minister more than anything else. So do not get carried away. And I would have thought, what I remember most reluctantly and unfortunately about Ms. Thomas's speech that night, it was the first time we listened to her in a long time, because after she made a speech in Queen's Park before the 2018 election, in which she vilified all the previous leaders and their sex lives in Queen's Park, I thought she was an embarrassment. I don't really pay her much attention. But then when I listened, I thought I listened to her, what was it, Folkestone? And she made some memorable things. Reference, she talked about Miss Du-Jones and her origins in St. Lucia. She made some very snide and offensive. And I'm surprised that one woman could, if that were a man saying that, he probably would have been castigated by the feminists and the Barbados
Yes.
women's
Misogynist.
and they all pick the teeth.
Yeah.
Not one word when she talked about she doesn't know why when she alleged, no proof, she alleged that Miss Du-Jones is always in solutions going to get top-ups. But then she went and talked about the candidate Chad Blackman. She like a big belly man. She had a big belly man. Those people in the audience who had a big man, put your hand in the air, and a big belly man. I had a big belly man. I tell you, real good. This is what she's. So you understand why I no longer choose.
Just a minute, Glyne. Please, are you telling me that what you have just said, our Prime Minister spoke, or Thompson?
That was Thompson.
That was Thompson. She spoke that from the platform?
At Folkestone.
and that is recorded on YouTube for
Yes, it's on
time
YouTube.
and eternity.
Of course, of course.
Oh my
So
God.
so so she's in a special class by herself. But let me
Ah,
get back to my topic, spotting the light on wrong information policy. Now, first of all, I like that song very much. I think it's the best early song to come out in a long time. And although I think the classic's best song ever is Tell Them Calypsonians back in 1986. But this one is good. And what I like about it is not only the lyrics of the song, but there's some Bajanisms. I don't know if you picked up Balaka, 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 Balaka.
yes,
And then you talk about Bozi. I mean, those things enhance and embellish and give it a Barbadian touch that you cannot get out of Trinidad, which we've been aping
that's
for so
right.
long.
That's right.
Right. So
That's
I
right.
want to commend them for even for those minor but meaningful inputs in that regard. My topic, having been a lifelong student and observer of international relations, local politics, human affairs, um, there's certain things that catch my eye. One of these things is that wrong information nowadays we call it disinformation and misinformation. That is the language of this current era and technological era. Disinformation, misinformation sometimes erroneously mistakenly said or done. That a mistake. But if it's which is deliberate, a deliberate misleading, that's the contrast between the two. So when I listen to when the reason why I listen to is that one of my regrets is that Barbie and particularly this Grant Lee Adams, Gordon Cummings, uh, um, Al Barrow, Tom Adams, Christine John, none of them has written their memoirs. None of them have written autobiographies. So you do while we hear of their deeds and misdeeds, their achievements, etc., their actions and statements, we do not get that inner
Yes. Yes.
explanation and context. Why I did this, why I said that, what I mean. So what we therefore have to rely is on a lot of anecdotal evidence.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
we still have a very largely oral tradition in Barbados, particularly where politics,
Yes.
because like I said, a lot of people have
Yes.
not written even there are very few good memoirs. I mean, so autobiographies on people. There's some very superficial ones. So therefore, we have to rely on other persons' retort these people what they hear, what they felt, what they believe, what they think they heard. And as you know, people hear things and remember things selectively based on their own thinking, their prejudices, what they want to remember, etc. So it is very different. It's very different, therefore, something to give true credence to what is said about these persons um, when you hear the word of mouth and anecdotal. And doing that, people often distort either deliberately or selective or just because of the way they do it. And this is quite unlike the developing country, where North America, particularly, where people write books on politicians and figures every day. I mean,
Yeah.
hundreds
Yeah.
now every year, right? So they have, and they do them, and they have to take their subject of public scrutiny and fact checking. They're under the analysis and criticism of other rights, etc. So it has to be done on a certain level to pass the taste and smelling test. We suffer from that badly, and as a result, I've often because of this paucity on authoritative information from leaders of their own actions and beliefs and policies and conclusions, etc. I often wish that we were indulging in what is known as um, psychohistory, and that is what a definition of psychohistory. You can read it differently for example, your projection and your thing has more authority than me. Like Rose, I concede that. So go right ahead. Definition of psychohistory. You, I'm not hearing you. I'm not hearing you. Not hearing you.
Yeah. I had muted myself to
Yeah.
prevent
So
any external noises.
start
Yeah,
over.
that's fine. A branch of social science that analyzes human behavior through a combination of other social sciences, including psychoanalysis. It focuses on understanding the unconscious factors that influence and determine individual actions, including the role of childhood experiences and socialization. Wow.
So that is psychology, and it's becoming. So it evolves like the other social science, like psychology, social
Mm-hmm.
psychology,
Mm-hmm.
psychoanalysis, all those
Mm-hmm.
factors. So you're trying to determine not only what the person, but why and how, and for what
Yes.
reason, to
Yes.
understand the person. The other
Yes.
leaders hopefully will learn from their thinking and behavior, etc. So
Mm-hmm.
we are, and therefore also there were some statements on the Marcia which I had that pointed me in this direction tonight. And one had to do with the with the so-called lost decade that you spoke about tonight, Ferdy.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Mm-hmm.
think in this regard, the DLP owes a great deal to you and other persons who have mentioned it. It's been mentioned on the show, but particularly Adrian Hines, who was very strong positive presentation a
Yes.
few nights ago,
Yes.
right?
Fantastic. He was
He did a
absolutely fantastic.
right, and that lost decade. I think with the DLP has allowed the opponents to determine to define and construct its narrative. They have
Yes.
not
Yes.
resisted.
I agree
Hope,
with you. I agree with
hopefully,
you.
this is these first signs of a strong comeback to correct the information, because you just want to give the facts, the information, and not be led by the myths and the distortion, the misinformation and the disinformation deliberately constructed. So I think that has been done, and but it has to be continued
Mm-hmm.
relentlessly. And the reason why I'm advocating it to the Democratic Party, because when I was in the BLP, we also had a problem. We also decided that the DLP had claimed that Mr. Barr uh, introduced free secondary education in Barbados, and the record did not say that. The record that he expanded it because Grant Adams outside Grant Adams in his time built Parkinson, Weston Joyce, no Grant Adams. Uh, the other one is in Philip, Princess Margaret, St. Leonard's Boys, St. Leonard's Girls. Those were secondary schools. They call them comprehensive or new, because it was a different form of secondary education to introduce other skills and whatnot. So that was the beginning of the expansion. But then Mr. Barr came. Along with that came the Barbados Institute, the Evening Institute, and the Technical Institute, which brought. So along with that, those came. Mr. Barr, that was done in the 50s. Mr. Barr won the government in December 61. And then in January 62, I think it was introduced free secondary education. So he took what was there and made it universal in the same way that Grant Adams removed the qualifications for voting and made it universal by being 21. That is the only qualification that your school would want. You were in a secondary school, it was free, taxpayer for it. So and we decided among ourselves that we have to start changing the narrative. And we start saying that and bit by bit as caught on, so that fewer and fewer people who are nowadays say it with as great certainty, because we then said we refuse to concede this territory to them, when in truth and in fact it was not exactly true. We should set the records straight. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so I think the DLP has some work to do, and that should be, because if they do that, they have to deal with this lost decade um, sensational invention. The facts don't show it, right? But if they drink and believe in their enemy's own propaganda, they will all be a victim to it, right? So, but I think that this misinformation also has another set of information I heard was during our presentation. I think it might also be um, during the presentation, Mr. Hines. Oh, Mr. Hines was also talking about we made some statements about Don Blackman and Sir Hilary Beckles, to the extent that these are persons, because of the plantocracy and the white business interests, etc., that they railed against. They had to flee Barbados. But and that Professor Beck, Sir Hilary Beck, is now in Jamaica. But Sir Hilary came back to the Caribbean, taught first at Jamaica, came to Barbados, lectured, etc., rose through the ranks and became principal of KFL. And then he was promoted to, Pro Vice Chancellor, which required his
Mm-hmm.
moving to Jamaica. So it's not fair for the record. I said, I'm trying to correct the record. I'm trying to give, because otherwise these things fall into myths and misperception and lies are told, and they take on their own truth because nobody conquers them with the facts. So he ended up in Jamaica not because of his offended the status quo in Barbados and the powers that be chased him with. That was a promotion for him in Jamaica. And I remember him very well because when he came back to Barbados, and I was then managing editor of the New Basic magazine. I remember I organized a full interview with him, and the headline on the cover was Barbados' biggest radical. So it is not to say or to give the impression that he was run out of Barbados. The same thing applies to Don Blackman. Don Blackman left Barbados having created, and it's not true to say that he left Barbados because the white shadows and their conspirators and colleagues and cohorts in the BIP ran him, put pressure on me, left Barbados and whatnot. If I can give it, and I'm correcting the record because I was there. I was there at government course when he got fired by Tom Adams. I remember it well because this is Don Blackman. I think he was Minister of Transport and Works or something like that. It was the longest cabinet meeting that lasted almost 11 o'clock.
Wow.
All right, and he, because when he had his other colleagues had become very dissatisfied with the way a lot of the services, roads, and things were affecting his constituency. It is said that all the roads, even the people pig pens and backyards were paved and Barbary Green, and other constituencies were suffering. So there was a great deal of dissatisfaction among his colleagues. So when he was being questioned and challenged, not a single person rose to defend. So he was fired. He went back. Mr. Barr said he never left the party. So to say then that the white shadow, that was not the reason of that. That had nothing to do with it. And remember the famous case with Cole Williams, when he awarded the contract for the building of the highway to part of it to Mr. Ray Side, and Mr. Williams took him to court, the Administrative Review Act, and won the case. So, and he left Barbados. He went to St. Trinidad. He got married in Trinidad, and then he went into St. Kitts, and he was into projects, building hotels and hospitals and what. So it is wrong, and so I can only go. I feel I have a moral responsibility as a Barbadian, as one who's been part of the political process, as a student of affairs, one who loves Barbados dearly, to where possible try to correct any misinformation that persons through innocence or just repeating what they've been told had perpetrated, and that is why I chose. So as part of my national duty, I try to tell people that I know, and so that other persons, other future persons would know the context in which these things happen. Otherwise, it begins to give people a distorted picture of politics and politicians. Politics are already regarded as a very nasty activity, and so therefore, when persons, for whatever reason, deliberately or unknowingly, add to that, it makes it harder for persons to get in. For young, progressive people who want to make a contribution, they are deterred by these stories, which are not always rooted in fact and water. So I thought I would set the record. Another one too was another one thing is I remember the question of red as a color in politics. Red as a color in politics dates back to a series of revolutions and uprisings in Europe between 1838 and 1840, between January 1848 and October 1849. We have some 50 countries across Europe. The young people rose. Remember hearing about the Arab Spring? Well, that was the equivalent of the Arab Spring, and so red became from then on the symbol of workers and workers' union, and because of most of the original political parties in Barbados, in the Caribbean, came out of the democratic socialism or social democracy, where the government's role is to intervene on behalf of the workers, the public, etc., to play an activist role in it. Red, especially, has all, and most of the political parties came out of trade unions. That has been adopted as the standard, as the international time for Red on Labor Day, Workers' Day, etc. So that is really the history. And the Barbados Labour Party, having been the first mass party in Barbados in 1938, etc., and the Eastern Caribbean, adopted Red because of its socialist democratic sort of background, and that's the context in which Red has become not only a party or a symbol of parties, but also is related to their so-called philosophical attachment to the plight and the interest of the workers. You have the Barbados Labour Party, you had the Democratic Labour Party, but obviously because the Democratic Labour Party came out of the Barbados Labour Party in 1938, they cannot have, they need their own image, their own symbol, their own. That is why each they have their own colors that present their own symbol. So I thought I would have to put some of those things in context. There's a lot more that can be said, but I thought those are the current things that had to be said. But also, I cannot help but note the 3 deadlines. You're talking about lost decade. You're talking about this one is more than this present government is a lost administration. A simple thing as giving $300 so-called solidarity allowance. I call it a national bribery, a national bribe, out of bribery. Even though it was carefully constructed to coincide with the 21st of May, the by-election in St. James North. The first deadline it gave was the 30th, for those who have to apply to get it. They gave a deadline of 30th of May. That was extended to the 30th of June. And now the third one I heard on Friday, the 30th of July. So what it means, and I found it quite demeaning that in this day and age with all the technology and all the brains supposed operating the bosom, that they cannot find a more dignified and significant way for persons to receive that grant rather than stand in the hot sun, the broiling sun, as the bear said, the boiling sun. I think, of course, it reminds me too of Miss Motley's grandfather. I know him because I dealt with him as a reporter, and I know him. I saw him in action in the city council dealing with people, so I know that of what he speaks. No way to tell me his story, and to have people go through this is a further reflection of not having brought through. I thought by now, having spent 9 years with in cabinet, she would have gone on for another 5 years after me, and then been a prime minister for 7 years. I thought she would learn something, how to plan, and begin to and execute, and get your goals. Only used to talk about clarity of purpose, certainty of outcome. But there's clear. I think she's incapable of that clear. She's muddled. She wants something done in her. How could you have three deadlines? 3 deadlines. You would know the capacity if you had thought what it was, be the capacity of the LAS to do it, to produce these checks or whatever. All that would have been big. You could have this could have been meant to coincide with back to school and let people have it in a proper way, systematic structure. But to have people for 3 months, virtually 3 months, stand out in the sun and rain to get, I think it is unbecoming, and the government ought to be ashamed of itself. Good idea. I'm sure people love the money, but they have to treat people with respect and dignity. And one last thing, I see there's been some comment about the abuse, the misuse of the children of St. James North for being forced to go to school
At the parliament.
at Parliament.
Yeah.
Now, normally that was a role normally accorded to the BLP supporters, the count in their throngs and their red. I would see them. For you would have seen them. That is the role of the senior, the adults in the party. But to have schools pick up those disturb, even though they were not the entire school, but disturb the schooling, the education of those children, just to come and wave some party colors. I thought again it was very dismaying. It was wrong. It should not have been done. Miss Morley, who was a former Minister of Education, should have known better. Those who planned the campaign should have thought better. Should not just seek to promote their interests, even in the minds of children who cannot vote yet. They were so determined to win every vote possible. But then I remember that in 1995, when Edwin Yearwood won the first I don't expect the crop competition, voice in my head, and I think over that, those were the songs. Thereafter, Miss Molly, who was Minister of Education and Culture then, shut down the secondary schools of Barbados and made the children go to the gymnasium to interact with Edwin. Edwin, as good a talent as he is, I think he's a good talent, had never sung, as far as my knowledge, sung or done anything to do with education. So you take him as an example of reading or writing and education, or literacy. He went up there as a champion of literacy. It was the most bizarre, one of the most bizarre decisions early I saw her make. And today, and this reminded me of that. You only had the bizarre thinking that we think that it's all right to shut down school because a man won a competition in Calypso. It did not relate to the education of the children. The songs were about education and the benefits of education, literacy, reading, writing, arithmetic, school behavior. They were not about that. I thought they were grossly misplaced. I'm around in my time, sir, and otherwise,
you're
you want me to write?
a couple of minutes over, but
Okay.
I'm watching for Maxine's arrival. I'm not seeing her in the green room as yet, so I can give you a couple more minutes.
Okay. I just want to say all this therefore fits into there's a concept known as triumphalism. Triumphalism. Triumphalism, where you celebrate. It's defined as an attitude of smug and boastful pride in one's own victory and success, often implying superiority over others. I'll repeat it: triumphalism. An attitude of smug and boastful pride in one's own victory and success, often implying superiority over others. So what all this carrying on that you've seen the BLP then over child blabbing, it was that triumphalism that would have led that thinking to put those children out of school to do that, to subject them to that experience. That I understand that they still celebrated. Apparently there was a celebration. I would have sent you you would have seen a flyer, Freddie. They had a celebration on Saturday. What it's called?
Yes, I saw that flyer.
Right, celebrating the big man or something like that. So
Yes.
A week after, they're still celebrating fete and food and frolic, all part of this. And the prime minister has a tendency, if she could do it, to go overboard on things, be excessive, rather than suffer for, rather so you go all out. I believe if Ms. Dujon could only have gotten 10 votes, she would be elected, because she must not. The prime minister is one, and then from my personal interactions here, operate and know how she thinks, etc. In these kind of adversarial situations against the adversary, she must win and win and win big each and every time. It's part of the alpha female, part of the alpha persona, where you're tough, strong, arrogant, dominate, win every time, every day, and everything with everybody. That is the nature of this leadership we're saying. So if you put it in that context, then that will help you understand even more why they indulge in, why they make all these T-shirts and the placards and the posters and music, because they got the money. And it's not only the money, it's the attitude towards campaigning that the prime minister has brought to the BIP in a way that and one day we must talk about. There's something in the Election Controversies and Offences Act that talks about treating, TREATING. So what you see with all these T-shirts and whatnot are considered part of treating, cajoling, manipulating, inducing people to vote for you, and it's forbidden. And we must look at that one some night and get a lawyer. We can go through it ourselves and get a lawyer I'll explain what it means in the actual context. So I think a lot of the things that we see being done in politics today actually probably uh, offend that act, but nobody has challenged it because everybody wants to be in the doing the game in the same way too. But I know, for example, that Tom Adams was very strong on. He had a strong limitation on T-shirts. That is why you do not see a T-shirt saying vote this person or vote that party. You have the symbols of X, etc., a dash, because all those are part of the treating. And I think by the time when we see this upsurge of money, I think in politics, with no accounting for it, no transparency, you don't know the source, you know the core pit core, you don't know the negotiations for it, to the detriment of the country. I think we have to start looking at treating and all the other political activities in campaigning to bring a halt to it, because that is all part of the anti-corruption drive that must be undertaken in the country.
And I hope you all understand what I'm trying to say, because I'm just asking the question, what does it look like? Go ahead, Glyne.
Yes. Ferdy, first of all, Maxine was complaining about, or was noting that about the frequent references that ministers make to the prime minister, invoking her name. The prime minister wanted that. The prime minister said that she should go. If you went back to the campaign, 2018 campaign, in a speech they were required to mention her name more between 10 and 15 times in a 20-minute speech. Those were the instructions. They have internalized that, and that has lived on. Maxine, you talk about the international business sector, for you talk about barbers losing business. KIPO, the corporate of international and corporate intellectual property, corporate affairs intellectual property. That Jeff Bezos talks about Doge, Department of Government Efficiency. That approach was implemented in Barbados long before it was done under President Trump. Because of the IMF, they had to amalgamate some other departments into KIPO, having laid off people. So more people are required to do more with less staff and less facilities. And right now they have not recovered yet from a shortage of staff. So everything takes long. Apart from that, just like the BRA, just like the customs, just like NIS, part of the problem are the unsuitable computer system that they saddle themselves with repeatedly. Systems that aren't able to be expanded to take you want to expand the capacity to do certain things. So certain things they want to do, the computers can't do them. So it slows down. I mean, that's part of the problem with NIS. And they have, my conclusion is, to have talked to a person who's been in the system a long time, at BRA, etc., that Barbadians, I think we've gotten ourselves into deals with computers, outside consultants, providers, rather than developing our own cadre of expertise who can write programs for us to suit our needs. People are here spreading and promoting these programs, buy them, and then they can't do your job, and they lock themselves in service contracts for years. I think when there was one organization when a man company had to pay $175,000 to him to come here each time if you had problems. That is madness. And they're not out of that yet. Those are part of the built-in problems that prevent them from modernizing, expanding, and becoming more efficient. Ferdy? Very good. Ferdy, can I jump in here?
Yes.
References have made it technology. Mankind has always had some form of technology. When in the school, we had technology. We had blackboard and chalk.
All right, that was the technology of the day.
A pen. All that with
and
all those are technology of the day.
What was that things? That square rule? What would you call that rule again? Remember that rule that we used to have, the slide rule?
Yes, slide rule.
And the abacus. The abacus.
Right. But the points we thought we knew. So once we forget the technology, it will change. What we're doing now in 5 years might be old-fashioned.
It's old-fashioned in a year.
So the current time, man has always been adapting and innovating and inventing to accommodate his life. Remember, we had to start with stone tools and iron and steel and glass. All that is technology. so you don't get carried away
It
with technology.
evolves. It
Right, it
evolves. It
evolves.
evolves.
Yeah,
I'm
it
glad.
does.
I'm glad Rose brought up that thing because I like.
Yeah.
Before you go, because I'm not sure how much more time you have left, but just to say, Rose, that I had been looking forward to your original topic, your analysis of the campaign, of the BLP campaign platforms. You remember that? That's what you were to have dealt with originally tonight. Am I wrong?
Pardon?
Or you were supposed originally to have dealt with an analysis of the campaign of the BLP's platform
She
during
did
the
some
last
of that.
For
obsolete.
obsolete, you know,
Right.
and so I think that we need to have, and this is in terms of, this envelops everything that we're talking about, to be brutally frank with you, because we are no, don't let me say that, because I am not in the departure lounge.
You know,
I am
when
I am not, I am not even
I have not even booked my ticket yet.
yeah, I ain't approaching the airport either, so I
tickets
I
will be
have to
booked for
find a
us.
different way of expressing
Tickets
this.
will be booked for us, so we
Oh,
wouldn't
I
even
see.
contemplate that. When it happens, it happens.
Let me tell you, I mean, you mentioned, Glyne, 5 years. I can tell you that within by next year, or even before the year is out, a lot of the stuff that we
But,
are
but,
dealing with now is
but
going to be obsolete.
quickly for you. Sorry to
Yeah.
interrupt, but I have friends who are in the creative sector, graphic designers. They are almost without jobs now.
Yes.
People say, look,
Yes.
they just plug it into AI. AI comes up with something for
Yes.
them, and they've been on it.
Yeah.
A lot of people have been laid off, jobs cut. They have to change jobs, go abroad, all kind of, because a simple set of machine has now replaced whole departments. People put
Yep.
it put in
Yep.
15, 20 years, and they now have to start all over again. But we have become, listen, the first thing we have to do in Barbados is once again have a respect, a high regard for education as a process and as part of our life.
Yes.
We have to
Yes.
take it
Yes.
seriously, respect it, and build that into children from day one. People tell me that children, they go to stores and children don't, people or people who work, attendants don't even can't calculate 2 by 2 in their head,
No.
or 2 plus
No.
6. They all have to go on the machine, or some
And
machine. I think
and
we have
and
we have sub we have abandoned. One quick thing, when they talk about using pencil and write, because when you are engaged with pencil, your whole being is engaged in writing as against on a tablet. So it's a whole process. And
yes.
remember,
Yes.
a person's brain is not fully developed until the year 20. You have a lot of room in there in which to,
Hmm.
to influence
Hmm.
people. So we have to go back again to basic, not only in education, in cricket too.
Yeah.
We have to go
But
back to the
you
basic.
said, something in your presentation tonight, Glyne, in terms of, I'm just trying to look back at it here. Let me just see if I can find it. When you talked about, what was this thing? Um,
Psychohistory. Psychohistory.
Psychohistory. You were talking
Right.
about psychohistory. You were talking about, how, it focuses on understanding the unconscious factors that influence and determine individual actions, including the role of childhood experiences in socialization. I mean, even within a church setting, we pay attention to a lot of these things. The Jesuits, I have said more than one occasion, tell us, give us a child for the first 7 years, and I will show you the man. And I believe that a lot of what we are seeing happening, even within our governmental circles at the moment, decisions that are being expressed without any thinking, any analysis, or anything, has earned its way or worked its way up through the childhood development of some of
But
these people. And they
Ferdy
just
just,
simply have not mastered that.
if you listen to the present reinstalled Minister of Educational Transformation, another set of buzzwords and labels. This government loves bywords, falls for them, and get hooked on them. What has he said yet? He has never said, he's not said 2 words yet that made me feel he's coming anything different. He just repeats and regurgitates buzzwords and
Talking
nothing,
points.
no, yeah. Your president, he's made the same speech in the House as he made it during the campaign. Different length, but the same thing, right? So until we get past that, we will not see any growth and development that we need. We have to force it on them. Don't
Mhm.
fall for the labels, the education. Remember, it's education before transformation. It was education reform. Education reform. Then it became education transformation. What next
Get a
now?
bigger word.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What
yeah.
next now?
Forever.
Because that is part of the penalty you pay when you put yourself in the clutches of the IMF. All these are things that happen in the United States where you must get a student loans in the United States are notorious, where people leave the university using owing $400,000 or $500,000 that they have to repay. Remember,
But
Joe Biden had the cancer summit,
yes,
and Trump has reinstalled. So they look at the pyramids and say you can make money out of this. We used to have, it reflects what they're also doing. What the government is also doing is admitting that people are impoverished. They're not having enough disposable income left in their hands to help buy. You can save over time to buy or get something for the credit union. Now you are at a department where it's another form of dependency.
Yep.
Clutches are where the private sector, the IMF feels that the private sector should run everything. So you're signing up for a semi-private sector system if the government to extract money out of poor people on the guys that's what you need to get to a primary school.